Welcome to Paint Along at the Plainfield-Guilford Township Public Library. My name is Laura and I'm going to take you step by step through doing a painting today. Normally we will do a landscape painting in acrylic that is seasonal, but this time of year I have to tell you that I found a really fantastic, I found a pumpkin at the orchard, and so I really felt like I really wanted to paint this pumpkin. So we're going to do it basically a still life painting today of seasonal, again, of a pumpkin, and so let's get started. So first of all, we're going to begin with a palette. I'm using just primary colors, yellow, red, and blue, along with white. You can find the materials that we use in our materials list in a previous video. Just look for materials list and you'll find everything that we need. So let's, again, the first thing that I want to do is, before we even put paint on the brush, I want to look at this composition and figure out exactly what I'm going to try to say. What is my arrangement of the various objects going to be? And we do that obviously in a landscape painting to move your eye around the painting, but we're going to do it again, the same thing with this still life painting. And let me show you what I mean. With this particular photo that I took of our pumpkin, you can see that there's a dark shadow in this area and light that basically takes your eye up to the edge of the painting, to the edge of the pumpkin rather, and these little tendrils that come off the pumpkin, they really help to define that and actually help to grab your eye and bring it up. The stem forms a triangle here, which is going to just make your eye basically curve around the pumpkin. So we've got this beautiful circular composition that keeps your eye in the painting moving around. So that's what we're going to focus on with this painting today. And now we're ready to actually start to mix some paint. To begin with, normally I tone my painting, my canvas. That means I put a color of paint on the canvas, the bare canvas. Today is simply a bare canvas. So today I'm going to be painting Al Prima from a bare canvas. So let's go ahead and I'm going to mix first of all rather a green tone to do my sketch of my painting in and the pumpkin. You'll notice that our pumpkin is a very pale orange, and on the color wheel, on the opposite of orange is going to be blue. And this darker orange, again, the opposites are blue, a bluish green. So those are kind of the colors that we're going to focus on in this particular painting. We're doing two colors that are opposite on the color wheel. So to begin, I'm going to take a little bit of blue, and I'm going to mix green. You can see, to get green, which is in the middle here, we're going to mix blue and yellow, and that will give us green. So I've got some blue, little dab of yellow, taking in the direction of green. Then I'm going to add a little bit of white, because what I'm really looking for is something more like a teal. You can see we've kind of got something like a teal going right now. That's about what I want, but I want a little bit more of it. So we're going to continue to add a little bit more. You can see it's a very cool green. Teal is a cool color, meaning it has a little bit more blue than it has yellow. All right, that's a little too blue, so I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to turn it in the direction of green. There we are. That's much more what I have in mind. Perfect. You can see that the background cloth that I had on this pumpkin is kind of this teal color, but it's very washed out, more white probably than anything. All right, so the first thing that I want to do is just do the basic shape of the pumpkin. And as you can see, it's very much just an oval. So I'm going to just kind of sketch my oval. Very, very long. Then up here. And then I got just the basic shape of it. I can see some very defined curves here. So again, just going to kind of sketch that in. Got another one here. And this whole area is in shadow. All right. Now I'm going to make sure I define this darker shadow here. Goes from here. Just gonna sketch that in. Very good. So my light source in this painting, if you couldn't already see that, the light is basically coming from this direction. So it's coming from the upper left. So this area is very well lit. The top is very well lit. This part is very well lit where the light's hitting it. And then we have shadow from here. And then the shadow, the cast shadow is coming around under the base of the painting. So we're going to focus on that and really highlight those points in this painting. There are a couple of other areas where I have a few shadows just for interest. Everything is kind of pointing, as you can see, the lines of the sheet behind it, the cloth, kind of pointing towards the pumpkin to keep your eye in that center, doing that circle within the painting. So here we go. All right. All right then. So now I'm going to put a few of these really darker tones in by adding more blue. And again, going back into that direction of that really dark evergreen color, much more dark. And I'm going to add just the tiniest bit of red, again, to get more of a little bit of a purple, kind of a cast shadow look. There we are. A little bit of yellow. There we are. All right. Want to keep it on the cool side, so that's why I'm adding more blue. Here we are. So now I'm going to start putting in some of the darker areas. I'm going to change brushes. This brush is really great for sketching a pumpkin, but it's not so great for filling in color. So really quickly, I'm going to switch out to a whiter brush. It's a little bit better. You can see. All right. So now I'm going to start filling in those darker areas. That's much better. What I'm doing now is just going to do, I'm going to fill in the local color, which is the basic color of the item, whatever it is that we're painting. This area has a little bit of gray. All right. Now I'm just going to make a basic wash. I'm going to add a little bit of white and just the tiniest bit of this yellow. And we're going to fill in some of these areas that are being hit by the light. Just filling in that color. I think the pumpkin really just kind of got my attention, because I will tell you that this time of year, I really enjoy having a little painting of a pumpkin around, you know, just in the house or in the kitchen. I just think that a little piece of art like that just really adds a nice touch. And it's very seasonal. Just fun to have. Just like in the summertime, I really love to have a painting of tomatoes or some other types of garden produce. I just really love what it adds to my kitchen. All right then. So let's go on now, and we're going to move on to the color of the pumpkin. So you can see now we think of pumpkins as being very orange. So to get orange, we have red and yellow, and you can see on the color wheel, orange is right between the yellow and the red. So to get orange, take a little bit of red. We don't need a lot. It's a very saturated color. And then we're just going to add yellow to get a really nice orange. Okay, now as you can see, ours is much lighter than that, so I'm going to add white to make a tint. That's a little bit more of what I have in mind. But if I really wanted to tone it down even more, if I add the opposite on the color wheel. So for orange, its opposite is blue. If I were to add a little bit of blue, that's going to tone it down and make a really beautiful shadow tone. So you can see how immediately the color that I get is very toned down. It's still beautiful, still very soft and very, very mellow, but adding that opposite on the color wheel really works beautifully for that, which is exactly what I want. You can see it's just almost a perfect match for my pumpkin photo here. So at this point, I'm just going to kind of fill in the negative space of that orange pumpkin. Right in between all of those lines. I'm working in acrylic, so I'm adding a little water just to kind of loosen that paint a bit. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here. And in just a bit, right now I'm just throwing in the local color, but we're going to focus in just a minute or two on those lights and the shadows on this pumpkin. We will get right to that. All right, just kind of going around in between all of these little and even the stem has a lot of this color in it. We'll go back over it in a bit with some darker tones, some purples and browns to define it. But for right now, with this local color, this is kind of what I want to fill in. I can see there's a little spot up here in the corner where the wall is peeking through that kind of mimics this orange. Again, I am actually going to tone it down just a little bit more because I don't want my eye to be drawn to that. I want it to pick up some of the same color, but I don't want it to be so bright and garish that it pulls my eye over there. So I'm going to add more blue to it, again, just to tone that orange down. This is what I want. As you can see, I'm just going to, again, just put a little bit. It's actually more of a tan. If you ever wanted to know how to get that beautiful kind of tan color, start with orange, then add blue to it and white. Might be an area back in here that I might just kind of pick it up too. And then maybe a little bit more of it down in this area. just for unity, just to kind of pull it together. Okay. Okay. Just really quickly kind of pulling that all around there. Okay, now we're going to look pretty seriously at the light and the darks that we see in this pumpkin. So one of the best ways to do that is to actually just squint your eyes a little bit, and that will really help you to notice the darker areas. So as I squint my eyes looking at this, I can see that there's almost, again, this oval, again, that mimics that shape. I see a darkness here, and I see a darker value here in the center, again, because the light is coming from back here. So we're going to put that in our pumpkin. So to get a beautiful, again, a beautiful shadow tone, we're going to start with orange. So let's make a little red and yellow to make orange. Then remember we added some white. And then to make a shadow of orange, again, opposite on the color wheel, we're going to add blue. You can see now that is going to be a really nice shadow. A little bit more there. It's going to make a really nice shadow for our orange pumpkin. You can see it almost matches. And here we are. So it's a little bit of an oval shape. A little blue coming through there. Going to go back in a little while probably and add a little more green to it, quite honestly. This is very brown, but that's all right. It is at least for me showing me where these shadows are. And then all the way over here. You can see it right through there. A little bit there. There's a shadow here under the stem. A couple other spots here, up in here. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to go back and make more orange, and we're going to work on some highlights on this pumpkin. I'm going to add some white. A little more yellow, just a little bit of red. Again, going with that pale orange. And that's kind of what I want right there. So, I'm going to go back over that, back in here. I'm going to hit this. Whoops. It's all right, I needed a smaller brush anyway. So, I'm going to hit wherever I see it lighter, like here. Making a little orange, making a little bit of white. And more white. There we are. So, I'm going to hit it here. And I like the layering of it, quite honestly. Let's do that. And then here, it actually comes down kind of right into there. Then a little bit, I'm seeing a little bit right in this area. And then here. Here. We're doing here, and I want this to even be lighter in tone, because if you can see there's a little bump here, the area in the foreground is lighter in value because there's a little shadow right there behind it. So let's put that back in. Here's that little shadow. Put that in there with that gray. There's that. And then let's go back to that orange. I'm going to brighten it up a little bit with a little more yellow and a little more white. I want that to be more of a hit here, right there. Now, another thing that I'm noticing, I love that light that's hit right here, but the reason it's not showing up is because the value in the background here is too light. If I want this to show up more, I've got to increase the darkness here on this little spot. So to do that, I'm going to go back to our shadow color. Remember that was kind of a purple that we had going over here? So we started with red and blue, made a bit of a purple. And then I added yellow to it to take it in the direction of a green. A little blue-green. There we are. That's kind of the color that I wanted. All right, so I actually think I want it more of a blue. I want a little more blue-green in that. There we are. That's, I think, a little bit better. A little tiny touch of white. I kind of want it to go in the direction of sage. There we are. That's kind of the sagey gray that I want right here. And we're going to put it right behind this little hit of light. So let's just see what happens when I add that. Look at how that shows up now. And quite honestly, it doesn't matter if I see it that way exactly in our photo. It's okay if it doesn't look exactly like that. Okay. Gonna add some more of that color down here. And in our pumpkin, a couple of spots here. You can see it's just a little bit darker and it kind of needs to be defined down in here. Now, another really great thing that when you're doing a still life is you're going to have areas like this that are very sharply defined, but then you also want to have areas where the tones maybe blend a little bit and you lose a line a little bit. Again, lost and found edges really increase the interest. So I'm going to fuzz this up. I'm just going to kind of blend back in here this particular line. So we have a really sharp defined here, and we're going to have kind of a softer edge back in this area. Again, a bit of a softer defined edge here. All right, so let's start to work a little bit on the stem. I'm going to take some of this darker color. You can see all of this part is in shadow. There's that. We have some really this is a really interesting stem, which is what really caused me to grab it. The stem is not like you normally would see in a pumpkin. I'll just show you that. So you can see, you can see how that just kind of curves around. Anyway, just adds another layer of visual interest. And of course, these tendrils are really fantastic. We'll put those in just a moment. All right, so I'm just going to define some of these areas. Here's a little bit of a shadow here. This area I want to be darker. And again, I'm looking at this little shape right here. Looking at the shape. Sometimes if you get a little bit confused about something, you know, when you're actually painting it, if you look at the shape that the item is, that will really, it really helps to define the painting that you're doing. And it really helps you kind of not lose track of it, especially when it's something like this, which is a really kind of an odd stem shape. Okay. I think I'm going to need to have another hit of that yellow or that really bright color back here where the light is hitting it as well. So I'm going to get to that, but I don't want to forget. That's something I want to do. So I'm going to add a little bit of this tan for the stem. That. A little bit of that. And then the tendrils, I'm going to do the tendrils actually with a different brush in just a moment. I've got another one that comes from here. We'll get to some more of it here in a second. Okay. I kind of want this, because this tendril is hitting the light, I really want that to show up. So I want to darken the value again of this little pumpkin over here. In this space, I want to kind of darken that value. Like this stem here, I'm going to add maybe a little bit more areas where it's kind of hitting the light. So right here on top, you can see right there, there's some light. That's not showing up very well. Let's figure out why. Let's get a little bit better. There we are. That's a little bit more of what I wanted. And then right in here, we have another little speck. And back on the back, there should be another little area that hits some light. Again, I like a little light here. And I'm going to brighten that up a little bit too. Okay. Lightening that up. I'm up here where that light is actually hitting that. I'm going to just lighten it up. Okay, that's a little bit more of what I have in mind. Okay, so now I'm going to go over and do kind of a wash on the background a little bit, and then we'll come back in and we'll finish these tendrils. So for that background, you can see it's very, very rough and very sketchy. But what I want to do is kind of tone it down. So to do that, I want to remember that teal that I had. So to get to teal, I'm going to mix blue and yellow to make green. And then I'm going to add white to take it in the direction of teal. You can see it's kind of a sage green. Now remember, if I want to do a shadow color of a sage green, I'm going to add its opposite on the color wheel. So the opposite of green would be red. If I added a little bit of red, that's going to take that in the direction of a shadow. You can see how that goes. And it also kind of warms it up a little bit. Again, opposites. I think I put just maybe a little too much red on there, but let's just see how it looks. It is too gray. Well, in that case, let's go back to the green and blue. Let's add more green. Red and or the blue and yellow make green. Take a little bit of white, going back into that area for some sage, kind of a sagey teal. There, that might be a little bit better. I think that's a little bit more of what I want. All right. So with my wide brush, I've got actually a filbert, which I really like the brush work on that. So I'm just going to use this big guy. I'm going to get it wet enough, and then I'm just going to kind of work it into some of this into my brush. And I'm just going to do kind of basically just a little bit of a wash. You can see. tone some of that down. Now I do like that lighter tone over here. Again, just toning down the corners. I want to keep our eye in the middle of the painting, so I'm going to kind of use the shadow tone to kind of create corners here. Just toning down that green a little bit. Okay, a couple of areas. I'm going to add a little bit of white to brighten that up a little bit because I don't want to lose these really great little lighter spots here. I'm going to add a little yellow, a little bit of white. All right, that's a better highlight right there. So let's just put that in here, some areas here, here. Here. As you can see, there's some areas where, in fact, we almost are duplicating. I like how they're kind of pointing towards the pumpkin. So we're going to do a little bit more of that. Let's lighten that up. Just kind of, again, just pointing towards the pumpkin. This I don't like, there's like a finger sticking there. I really don't like that. I'm going to tone that down. Just kind of bring that shadow just a little bit, tone down a little bit. Bring that down. And then just kind of washing over the background here. That's a little bit better. Okay. Much better. I'm liking that a little bit. Okay, I'm going to pull that back a little bit. A little more of that white. I kind of want this kind of to curve around. There we are. A little more like that. Okay. So far, so good. Let's go back in and put those tendrils in. And this will be just about finished. All right, so the tendrils have two tones with them. They have a darker color, actually. They have a darker brown. Really solid brush there. Okay. So we have this little kind of a tan color that we had earlier. So we're gonna just take some of that darker tone that we had earlier. See if we can get any of that left. I don't think there is. I think it's all dry. All right, let's begin with a little green, the blue. Now let's add some red to it. That's going to take us in the direction of brown. Beautiful. All right. So there might even be a couple of spots here on the stem that I want to focus on. Just put a couple more little specks in here, a couple of lines. All right, so now these tendrils, as you can see, they have like a two-tone. This one is really interesting because it comes out here and then it curves in. So I want to kind of wiggle my brush as I'm doing that. There. And now this one comes straight down. Now I might modify that. I don't want it going off the edge of my canvas. But what I am going to do is just going to kind of pull it in Again, I don't want any straight lines. I want them very curvy. And I might just kind of go in this direction. I love this, again, this circular look that we're going to go with. And now, this tendril is primarily light in tone with its values, but down here, you can see there's like a little squiggly area. And I'm going to just kind of do that. All right, now I'm going to go back and get the second tone, which is kind of this peach yellow tone. So I'm adding yellow, and I'm adding white. See how that looks. See if that's about right. All right, so I'm going to hit just the top where the light is hitting it, right there. I'm just going to follow that just all the way around. I don't want to have a straight line because the light, it hits it in actually a couple of different spots. There we are. Same thing with this tendril. Just going to hit here, right there, where the light is hitting, and then there's a little spot. Great. And as you can see, this one is very curvy. There's a line that comes across. Actually, it comes down into the pumpkin. So let's do that. Oh, I did not do the shadow portion of that, did I? There it is. There's the shadow. And then here we have lots of little squiggles. And then I'm going to highlight just some of these little tiny squiggles here. I kind of think and there's that. All right, so I'm looking for any other areas that I really want to kind of hit with a little bit of a highlight. And there's that. Not so sure that one should be, but okay. All right. And one more thing, where this little highlight is that I love, that area behind it needs to be this dark green tone because it's in shadow and we want to bring attention to that little highlight right there. Put it there. Let's also bring some of that over here. And we are going to also just bring little bits of it, like little, oh, I didn't want to do that. Too much blue. So I really do. Again, I like those lines that we were seeing here. All right, well, so much for our little pumpkin painting today. I'm glad you joined us. Please join us again next time as we paint along.